Hello world, let's talk gameplay trailers. There's been a few cases of fake gameplay trailers in the past year or so. Aliens, Colonial Marines and Watch Dogs stand out as significant examples. Gameplay trailers which boasted much shinier graphical prettiness than the final product actually delivered. Now when we watch a trailer we shouldn't have to ask if it's going to look this good in 8 months, and God knows we wouldn't get an honest answer if we did. But we're barely past the point where we have to ask whether a gameplay trailer is pre-rendered or actually in-engine. Was this entirely created by artists, or will this actually be playable on our home consoles and computers? And this is something that has actually been the subject of legal troubles. Not only those recent examples either, I don't know how widespread this is, but here in the UK, TV adverts seemingly have to tell you whether or not something is actual in-engine footage or pre-rendered. This used to be completely different. Back in the days when computers were running MS-DOS and we didn't even know what a start menu looked like, a pre-rendered trailer was enough on its own. We knew our old 486 computers weren't rendering this in real time. Hell, we were lucky if we could get a video file to play at all. But the very idea that any computer anywhere could produce these kind of visuals was mind-blowing. There was actually a term for this: rolling demo. It showed you prettiness, but you couldn't interact with it in any way. Well, you could exit when you wanted. Sometimes. But it wasn't a trailer. It was a rolling demo. Nowadays, in a culture of hiring Olympic-level twaddle merchants instead of PR staff, some people have started to question if gameplay trailers are getting touched up as well. At first, I dismissed this as being kind of ridiculous. Screenshots? Sure. That's been happening ever since companies were taking photographs of the TV screen, airbrushing the results and sending them off to magazines. But for a full video, a video probably playing at 30 frames per second and lasts at least a minute, there's no magic bullet that can instantly make all of this stuff look better. You can't just increase the shadow resolution with a filter. Nor can you just throw it on a mainframe and expect a full 60 FPS. The brute force approach does not work here. It doesn't work that way. As far as I could see, gameplay trailers were meant to be some kind of promise from the developers that they could deliver. Here it is running in real time, we can deliver the goods. Basically they're meant to be something which can't be faked. Then I thought about it, and I realised they absolutely could be faked. How? It takes two bits of technology which in terms of games are kind of ancient. The reason that we distrust pre-rendered trailers is because they're non-interactive. These days we can make stunning non-interactive visuals. I mean, Pixar's been proving that for years. What happens there is called offline rendering. It means that the computer has all the lighting, animation, everything you need to create the image made up in advance or can be calculated on the fly, and it builds up this video one frame at a time. It has all the time in the world it needs to create this video at whatever resolution you want and at whatever frame rate you want. The challenge with creating a good looking game in real time is that many of these variables are not set. The camera angle or the player's position could change, for example, and a real time engine has to cope with that and make it look like the input had some kind of immediate effect. Not so with offline rendering. No player input is required, and if you ran it multiple times you would get the same result. And this has been used all over the place in video games, from the cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII to the sprite animations in Donkey Kong Country, yes, the 16-bit SNES one, to the background images used in the first Resident Evil. These consoles weren't rendering those shiny, smooth 3D graphics on the fly. The graphics were rendered offline, the results were saved, and they were essentially played back later. The advantage to the lack of immediate player input is that you can just leave these things to render and come back when they're done. And you'd probably have to back then, because you weren't talking about frames per second. If you were lucky, you were talking frames per day. The biggest advantage to offline rendering is if you don't have to worry about frame rate, you can apply any effects you want. Anti-aliasing, anisotropy, SSAO, anything you want, just have to leave it enough time to get the job done. Let's take a slightly more recent example. This Crysis video where somebody detonates about 3,000 explosive barrels at once and records the glorious results. Are you wondering how this video has such a smooth frame rate? I mean, simulations on this level were known to cause crashes. Well, once the game had finished with all the graphics and physics simulations and finally had a single frame of video to show, it was saved as an image file. And God knows how long that took, but I'm positive it wasn't at a playable frame rate. Not at the time this video was made anyway. Once the whole simulation was finished, all the images were stuck together in a video editing program, and there you have it. Kind of like a flipbook really. It only takes a couple of seconds to play back the animation, but you had all the time in the world to draw those images beforehand. So that's the first piece of technology. We can get great visual fidelity so long as the computer has enough time to render it all. So how do we make that playable? We don't. Computers aren't fast enough to make this run in real time. That's where the second piece of technology comes in. Demo recording. All demo recording does is record the positions of everything in the game world at regular intervals while somebody is playing it. Then you can take that data, feed it back into the engine later, and it's as if the person's playing it in front of you. It looks almost exactly the same. Have you ever used the replay function in, say, a driving game? Same process. Now here's a more relevant example. When you boot up Quake, the first thing you see is what appears to be a guy playing through the level E1M3. That's a demo recording. And if you're still wondering how that's relevant to the topic, here's that exact same demo rendered in the comparatively modern Dark Places engine. Big difference in visuals, almost completely different engines, but showing the exact same gameplay. By altering the code to put out individual frames as image files instead of putting them on your screen, you can achieve what looks to be gameplay, and it doesn't even have to be rendered in real time. So hopefully you see where I'm going with this. Get a gameplay demo at the lowest possible settings to achieve the highest possible frame rate, save that, put the demo back into the game engine with all the visual settings turned up to buggery, boom! Pre-rendered trailer with what appears to be gameplay. There's a bunch of other things that one could conceivably do to help such fakery. Turning down the complexity of the physics, cherry picking certain areas of the game that run nice, that kind of thing. But I decided to focus on one topic for now. I'm not saying anyone is doing this, by the way, I'm just saying it's theoretically possible. This is the way I would attempt it if I happened to have no soul or a terrifyingly crippling financial situation now. Hopefully I haven't given any developers any ideas. Probably should have thought of that at first. The thing is, I'm not trying to expose anything here. I'm not trying to reveal some great conspiracy in the AAA games industry. I'm a gamer, right? I hope that would be obvious. But I'm also a programmer, a coder, a software engineer. That's a job all about problem solving. And I saw a problem, my mind went to work at it, mostly unconsciously, and it came up with a potential solution. I don't like being lied to by any means, and I don't wish to belittle the issue of misleading consumers for short-sighted profit at the expense of maintaining their trust, but I'm not trying to start a witch hunt either, so that's all this is. A theory.